Lindsay, if you are connected, yes, it looks like
So,
that. Um, I think we're ready to rock and roll. We have some new faces and people, so I don't know if you will want to do a round of introductions
yeah,
or
I would like to. So, folks, if you'll just do a quick who you are and your affiliation. Dean, do you need us to run through the voting members, or is that list comprehensive so that we know we have a quorum?
we do have a quorum, and as far as voting members, I know Alara, and I think you might have seen a copy of an email. She's running 10 minutes or late or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So I think if folks just want to say their name and their organization affiliation for the WIC, then we'll just keep it brief. So I'll start. I'm Lindsay White. I'm with the Missisquoi River Basin Association and am chair of the WIC, and I will just call on people. So Dean, you go next.
Dean Pierce, Regional Planning Commission staff.
Ted.
Well, Orleans County Conservation District.
Dan.
Haley Rushford representative.
Carrie.
Hi there, I'm Carrie with the Franklin County NRCD, and I'm a non-voting person here today presenting a project.
Ben.
Yeah, Ben Machin with Red Start, working with Franklin County NRCD on a project that's under consideration today.
Great. Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Medina, the Stormwater Coordinator for the town of San Albans, and I'm gonna vote today.
Kent.
Kent Henderson, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, voting member.
Mel.
Mel, she, her pronouns. I'm with the Franklin County NRCD.
Lorna.
Hi, I'm Lorna. I work for NRPC.
Lauren.
Lauren Weston, District Manager for the Franklin County NRCD. She, her pronouns. Got a bunch of projects. I'm technically voting, but I imagine I'll be abstaining most of it.
Beth.
Good afternoon, Beth Torpy, Northeast of Vermont Development Association, voting member.
Nora.
Morning, Nora Brown. I work with Dean and Lorna at NRPC.
Chris.
Hi, folks. Chris Rottler with the State Department of Environmental Conservation. I am not on the BWIC, just here to support your efforts.
Sadie.
Hi, Sadie with Franklin County NRCD, non-voting member.
James.
Hi, James King with Red Start. Here with another colleague at Red Start. We're helping on the West Hill Brooks Strategic Wood Additions project.
Heidi. Okay. Heidi will come back if she pops back on. But thanks everybody. I think, did I miss anyone? Speak now. Great. We can proceed then. Just as usual with our meetings, please try to stay engaged, keep your camera on if possible. Ask a question as it occurs to you, either raise your hand virtually or physically. And then similar for voting, I will state everyone's name when they vote so that it's easy for the record. And Lauren already mentioned conflict of interest, that she will be planning to recuse from the votes pertaining to projects that the FCNRCD is bringing to the table today. Is there anyone else that would like to state a conflict that is a voting member? Okay. On to the agenda, which we got earlier, so hopefully folks were able to take a look at that. But any adjustments needed? Any notes that folks want to make before we approve and move on? Hearing none, I'll seek a motion to approve the agenda as written. and provided to us.
This is Lauren, so moved.
Thanks, Lauren. Is there a second? I see Ted
Second.
seconding. Great. All in favor? We've got Lindsay, Dan, Julie, Kent, Lauren, Beth, Heidi, Ted. Awesome. Motion carried. Heidi, do you want to quick say who you are? Just state your name and your affiliation.
I am Heidi Birch-Valenta with the Village of Swanton. I'm a voting member.
Thanks, Heidi. And I see that Karen has also joined. Karen, do you want to chime in and just say who you are?
Yeah.
Know?
Karen Bates, Watershed Planner for DEC, Water Investment Division.
Great. Thank you, Karen. All right. Agenda is approved. So we've got minutes from the meeting that almost wasn't. Folks hopefully looked those brief minutes over. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please state them now. If not, we'll seek a motion to approve those brief
Motion
minutes.
to approve.
Ted's motioning. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan seconding. All in favor? I've got Lindsay, Dan, Julie, Kent, Lauren, Beth, Heidi, Ted. Motion passes. Running right through it. Next agenda item is public comment not related to items on the agenda. Anyone have anything they want to bring forth while we are gathered? Hearing none. Moving on to seatings of new reps. I don't think we have any of those. Oh, we do. Julie.
Yes, actually.
Great.
So, yes, Julie Medina Triana is the stormwater coordinator for the town of St. Albans, and she is going to be taking over the alternate spot that was previously held by Dave Allerton, the St. Albans Town Public Works Director. So there isn't any action. The bylaws state that they're established at the meeting. So welcome, Julie. And we need you or can use you because the regular rep, Sarah, is, I think, going on a 3-week hike or is in the middle of a 3-week hike. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Happy to have you officially join us, Julie. Thank you. All right. I've now lost track of my agenda. Thank you. Reports on budget adjustments.
So just jumping in, this is a standing agenda item where if I have as staff or I as staff in connection or combination with the chair and vice chair have given approval to budget adjustments, which we can do when those adjustments are less than 20%, then we report them at the first meeting after. So there are no reported budget adjustments that you would just receive news of. But as you can tell from the packet, there has been a request to adjust the budget for an amount that's greater than the threshold, the 20%. So that's kind of technically a separate agenda item, but it's next up. And there's information about it in the packet, and I have a slide, and the maker of that request is also here. And if we can rule, and actually Alaire is coming on board, so the minutes can show that she has arrived at 12:13. This is, as I said, a request that's greater than 20%. It would be taking the amount of the original approval, 14,000 and change, and increasing it to 18,000 and change. It's for project development work. And since project development work doesn't have a required or necessary phosphorus reduction number associated with it, there's no meaningful way to calculate a cost effectiveness ratio, but with project development funds, we are not looking at that since they are a certain portion of them do not have any kind of phosphorus reduction benefit associated with them. So this is something that, like I said, is more than can be approved administratively, and it's not a lot of funding. And I guess if the folks from the Conservation District wanted to say a little bit more about it, then now is a good time.
Hi, folks. This is Lauren. We did a lot of project development out in Montgomery for a lot of flood resilience projects, and you'll hear the outcome of that when we propose the final design project that you're here. But basically, it went a little bit over budget, and so we're just looking to cover our costs. I think it's a little less than $4,000. But it's come up with a really good income. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
The income will help create a good outcome, correct?
Tis the riddle goal.
Any questions for Lauren or Mel regarding this project?
And I did not include on the slide a draft motion, but this would be comparable to the other applications that you've considered.
If there are no questions, would someone like to motion?
I'd like to motion to go forward and do good things.
We have a motion from Ted. Is there a second? We've got a second from Kent. All in favor of approving this under $4,000 increase for this project? We've got Lindsay, Julie, Kent, Dan, Beth, Sadie, Heidi, Ted, Alaire. Any abstentions? For the record,
Lauren, I abstain.
All right, that is all voting members, so the motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Next up, application reviews. Starting with design.
Dean, do you care which order we go in?
Do I care which order that you go in?
Yeah.
I guess I would say I don't care unless people think it's going to take a long time, and then put the most important one first, in your view.
I'll put the straightforward one first. And so I'm going to put forward they're both floodplain stream restoration, the strategic wood addition project. And there's some folks from Red Start here to talk about this project as well. So I might turn it over to them if they want to chat. If not, I'm happy to provide some context. Sorry, Ben and I did not coordinate great before this, but Ben, do you want to just talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Perfect timing. Just managed to eat a bite. Let's see. So we've been working closely with Stacy and also with Shane Jakewith of TNC. As you all may know, the guidelines for strategic wood addition funding through the formula end of things have been evolving quite a bit. And so we conducted the initial design, preliminary design, in the way that Stacy wanted, and we now have some additional requirements to redo certain measurements and to provide some additional documentation as part of final design. So, and I think Stacy's kept Karen in the loop, and Shane is also assisting with some of the field work because of his background in this area and his interest in seeing more, his and TNC's interest in seeing more SWA work happen in Vermont. So and the person on our team who's actually leading this effort is on vacation this week. So myself and James and Javier filling in, and happy to answer any technical questions, but that's my layman's summary of the situation.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, so this is a continuation of a project that preliminary design just wrapped up in Montgomery on private lands for SWA. It's kind of a pilot project running through the SWA work for the Quist. And we're not asking for too much money. What are we asking for here? Sorry, folks.
You are asking for $10,334, if I'm remembering right. No, that's the cost effectiveness.
Okay,
My
I
apologies.
don't think
Yes.
that's the number.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong table here. Your
13.
request for the, wait a second, I've got a problem here. That's why I was relying on your, okay.
Right, buddy. This is my fault and I will own it.
It looks like 13,450.
Okay, that's what I thought too, but then I wasn't, yes, that's what we're asking for final design. Again, I think, Red Start's working through some of the big process questions with DEC, and we're trying to get some of those answers. So hopefully future SWA projects can be a bit cheaper, but I think, the costs are what the costs are for helping everyone get on the same page.
Just make a quick comment, Lauren. That's actually pretty good phosphorus reduction for strategic woody additions.
Thanks.
Are those going to include BDAs as well, or just log drop?
Hey, Red Start team. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, James or Hobby, you want to take that? My understanding is that it's just the addition of wood in a traditional SWA manner.
Okay, so bringing wood off-site or along on-site wood?
On-site wood, and I guess as it relates to the phosphorus, the sections of stream and the locations for the installs of the wood were selected because they should maximize the impact as phosphorus is currently calculated by DEC. So that's kind of a mouthful of a response, but basically the way that it's currently being credited leans heavily on re-accessing floodplain areas along the stream, as opposed to giving a lot of weight to increase of sediment within the stream channel or other possible ways one could look at SWA for phosphorus crediting. So we selected sections of the stream that seemed like they would maximize the amount of floodplain access in order to generate a higher level of phosphorus credits and make it work for this sort of funding formula.
Yeah, I heavily lean on DEC to come up with those with techniques like this.
Yeah, I think everyone is really interested in seeing it become a bit more streamlined, as Lauren said, and we're committed to working through this with Stacy and the rest of the team to see if we can come to some place where it will be easier for people in the future to estimate ahead of time. Yes, Lauren. Be easier for people to estimate ahead of time whether a particular project fits this funding source or not. But we're optimistic and hopeful that it could be a widely used technique across the landscape because there's so much potential for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to belabor it anymore, but it does have like so many more co-benefits to floodplain function and fisheries habitat that we should acknowledge.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Go ahead, Alaire.
Yeah, thanks. I think I just wanted to kind of state in this group of folks just that we are at VLT, we're really excited to also be doing strategic wood addition, process-based restoration, working with Red Start and others. And I think I'm glad that you guys are seeing this as maybe this time it's this involved and expensive, but we're going to work towards something more efficient because I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think it's critical to be able to do more of this work. I actually really struggle with the idea that we need preliminary design and final design for a strategic wood addition project. We are doing a project, with Red Start in Basin 5, where I think we just went like straight to final design with one proposal. And I just worry about like the needing excessive, what I think of as potentially excessive design for something that's really supposed to be low tech and not require a lot of engineering. Like the cost here is similar to sort of like a simple design that actually would need like a culvert or something like that might need a little more engineering. So I just want to say this with this group that we can all really hopefully be wanting to work toward a space where this is a really simplified and like totally streamlined process, love the pun, and that we get to just do it more, that it doesn't cost as much. I think like the cost that you propose is what's needed for like the level of like documentation that DEC is currently requiring for these projects. And I just want to like push on that and say, can we do a little bit less there and still get the same result? I think that we can. So I just like really want to support this not being a precedent for like having to have multiple design phases for what should really be like a fairly straightforward type of restoration work. So I totally support this. But I just want to like say that and open this up if others have thoughts on that general topic too.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more with that, Alaire. Yeah, it seems like it's a very in-depth and evolving set of guidance, and it takes a lot more time than it should. And we would prefer it to be different. We respect Stacy's role, and so we're trying to work through that with her.
Dean, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have a question or comment?
Well, I was just going to say two things. One is that Ted's comment about the relatively good-looking numbers could be a function of the fact that the phosphorus reduction for this type of project varies watershed by watershed. And so, Ted, if you've seen numbers for the Memphremagog, they're not going to be as good as the Missisquoi because of the quirks for how the phosphorus reductions were assigned to watersheds. That's a very technical point, but the Missisquoi Basin is a good place to do this type of project relative to other basins. And then the only other thing I was going to say is that I misspoke earlier and I was using the figure 10,000 instead of 13,000. Well, the $10,000 figure is what the estimated cost effectiveness for the entire project. So assuming the 65,000 in implementation, that's where that came from. And that's still a relatively good number looking down the road for the ultimate implementation. And I will stay out of the discussion regarding the DEC procedures for this type of project.
Any other questions or comments about this project? Would anyone like to make a motion regarding this project?
I'm
Move to
surprised
support the
Alaire.
project. Oh.
I'll second Alaire. I was just gonna say I can't believe I beat Alaire to motioning.
Okay, we have a motion from Alaire to approve this project and a second from Ted. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. We've got Lindsay, Dan, Julie, Kent, Beth, Ted, Alaire, Heidi. Any abstentions?
Lauren, I abstain.
That's all voting members, so the motion carries. Thanks everybody for good discussion. Thanks to the FCNRCD team and Red Start for bringing this project forward. On to the next.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Red Start. Carrie, your turn.
Yes. I'm just going to share my screen. If possible, I just sent a request. Okay. All right, can you all see a screen that says Trout River floodplain restoration?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful. So I am presenting a project that is the Trout River floodplain restoration. It's a final design. And this project came out of our Montgomery project development work that we have done, as mentioned earlier. This project that I'm going to present to you all, it's a combination of two projects that were initially like scoped and designed by SLR during our Montgomery flood resiliency study, which was prior to the Montgomery PD. And so we had that flood resiliency study done with some designing from SLR. Then we moved to project development to speak with landowners about these potential project ideas and see if landowners were even interested in these ideas. They were very like kind of like desktop model based designs. So then we got out on the landscape, looked at what these sites looked like, and we talked to the landowners through project development. And then we came up with this project. So the goal of this project is to restore floodplain access along the Trout River in Montgomery Center, where homes are some of the most flood prone. We want to collect data and refine hydrologic and hydraulic modeling from previous Montgomery flood resiliency study to inform an alternatives analysis on all properties. We want to complete a more thorough 30% design of this project to present to all of the landowners, because the designs that we showed the landowners right now are pretty general. And we want to do some more on the ground analysis to give landowners a better idea of what these projects would really look like. So with that in mind, here's like where it gets a little bit interesting. One of the parcels that this project would impact is town-owned land that is planning to do some earth moving in 2027. So we're trying to align final design with that parcel. And then the other parcels, we would move to final design by 2028. So here is a map of the project. Can you all see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this here is the town parcel. We have received landowner permission to move forward with designing this project here. And this is where the earth moving will happen, ideally in 2027. We spoke with the landowners here at this property, and they gave us landowner approval. Lauren and I walked this site, and the initial idea that was proposed from SLR was like a floodplain restoration. When Lauren and I walked it, there were a lot of flood chutes. So we're curious, what would floodplain restoration look like here? Would it be, excavating a bunch of soil, or would it be opening up those flood chutes? So that's something we want to explore. Then this property here and this property here, we received landowner permission from both of these folks to pursue this project through the next phase of this design. And again, kind of like have that step of like do a more thorough 30% design to propose to the landowners, with then the following final design coming after that. Here are some photos of the site I mentioned that looks like it has some opportunity for flood chute opening that we want to explore some more. And then here is kind of a little, this is our like project schedule that we had in mind, where we would collect data and then kind of have two separate tracks, where the town parcel would more quickly move through final design, and then the other parcels would kind of have a step of 30% design before moving to final design. part of the reason we want to do it all in one big project is because these projects are so connected. It's this stretch of the river that makes sense to model all together. And so Lauren and I met with Stacy and we talked about this project with her, and she felt that it made sense to model all of this together because then we'll know that they work well together. So here is the budget. The final design that we're proposing today, we have $231,270, and with a total project cost of $431 around $1,000, with an estimated P credit of 13.5 kilograms per year and a cost effectiveness of around 32,000 kilograms per year. And some other project benefits include minimizing flooding impacts on a rural town center, improving climate resiliency and working towards environmental justice solutions, restoring aquatic and riparian habitat, and improving clean water in the Trout River. And that is all I have for you. I am happy to pull up any, I'll keep this map open, take any questions. Yeah. I'll maybe stop sharing for now.
And I'll just chime in. This is part of the reason why project development needed a little bit more funding, because it got complicated in a good way. And I just want to shout out Carrie with her project development work. Like, this is a lot of landowners and a lot of people we didn't know, and like some really important relationships were built here. And she did a great job of accessing folks that aren't necessarily typically engaged in this type of work, and they've all given us landowner permission, which is like a really incredible opportunity, in my opinion, to make a meaningful impact in Montgomery.
This is cool. Way to thread the needle on multiple landowners. That's a trick.
Yeah, right.
I know. All you need is one in the middle with a half an acre lot to throw it all off.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, I'm curious on the portion that's most downstream. Are you retiring farmland? I'm just trying to picture it as I drive along the road, and I'm trying to think, did I see a cornfield there?
That is a great question. The project does the design that we had from SLR, it does seem to cut off some, farmland. Our kind of approach right now is, this area will change as we get those on the ground data points. We did also communicate with Ben Gabos, and he said that he's worked with this landowner before on a CREP project. I think we're like open to all of the different possibilities, and see what the improved designs lead us to, as well as, talking with the landowner and seeing what they're open to.
Okay. Driving by there a couple times last week, I can see it's an area where the corn was not doing very well. It looked like it's really quite wet in there. It's not a good place to be planting corn, in my opinion. So I think this is a lot better use for that particular piece of land. I was just wondering what complications there could be, with if you're going to be dealing with the ag agency as well as DEC. That's all.
Yeah, I think all good questions, Ken. And I think the complications of the two agencies we will certainly run into. as this moves forward.
Go ahead, Dean.
This is, as Ted said, taking an effort to thread the needle. We have, we asked some questions about the complexity of the scheduling early on, and there are some things that the QUISP thinks about when looking at a project that has different moving parts, not the least of which is we're not supposed to claim any credits until the project is completed, and a project like this completed in different phases could conceivably mean that we're not going to be claiming any credits until the part that follows behind, unless we do some splitting. And I guess I just wanted to bring the book's attention to that fact. Well, first, that we were struggling with how all of this could work. We want to try to be as flexible as we can. It could, in my mind, possibly necessitate some adjustments if things start to break up into separate pieces. And this is just more of putting things on people's radar. And then I guess if Karen is still here, I just was going to ask her, because I don't think I think I thought about sending this email, but I'm not sure that I ever did. The designation of this project as a final design project, where there are pieces of it that are reaching back further, does that give you any reason to be concerned, or are you totally fine with it like we initially are?
Yeah, I think that just as long as after when the final design is complete, that all the deliverables are from the preliminary design and final design are included. And you may want to make that note then, so do you make sure that if when you approve for implementation that there isn't something lacking.
Right. Well, using Alaire's project as an example, we did that. We included in a task award the list of deliverables for the prior phase. And so for this, we would probably list the preliminary design deliverables for those pieces that are being done as preliminary design. So, okay, I'm glad to hear that you're on board. We have some experience for having it addressed in the task awards.
Yeah. I think that the where we would be concerned is if the river scientist wasn't on board, wasn't being consulted, and we needed to make sure that they were okay with the preliminary design and it signed off. But you're in touch, right, Lauren?
Oh yeah. This is a very collaborative project with Stacy. We've
sure
had a
she's
couple
loving
of
it.
Yeah, I think she's been working on the trout for a while now. I think she's excited about this one.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
I would just also add that, as I was saying before, about the estimated cost effectiveness, when you prognosticate and try to predict what the overall project cost would be, it's sitting at around 32,000, which is, it's not in the superb range. Hopefully there'll be some ways to improve that number if they exist as the design work goes forward.
Definitely, yeah. They're definitely all the numbers are preliminary, and we'll sink our teeth into that a bit more.
That 32,000 is the number for the whole thing with the full project. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Aren't any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion regarding this project?
Sure.
Yeah.
You were all waiting for me anyways.
We have a motion from Ted. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Alaire. Any further comments, discussion, questions? All in favor of moving this final design project forward, please indicate. Got Lindsay, Dan, Julie, Kent, Ted, Alaire, Heidi, Beth. Any abstentions?
This is Lauren. I abstain.
And is all voting members accounted for? Motion carries.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
This is gonna be a fun one. We'll definitely keep you up to date. Yeah, thank you. This is very exciting. I think those are all the new projects we submitted. And so I think the next agenda item, excuse me, next agenda item is the project adoption of also our project. Okay. Great. Hey, Mel, take her away.
Hi, everyone. So I think we are all still learning about O&M, and this might be the Missisquoi Basin's first project adoption application. So just please bear with us. But the project itself is relatively straightforward. I'll just share a map of it. We had a tree planting with Trees for Streams through NRCC at a property in Enosburg. It was around 1.35 acres on a tributary to Cold Hollow Brook. We implemented it in 2 phases, one in 2024 and one in 2025, because we had thought that we were going to try and remove some knotweed in the area. And if you can see my cursor, the knotweed's kind of located in the inner buffer areas here. In order to, plant those areas, but I think it just was not cost effective. And so the second year we ended up just planting more densely in these blue areas. The buffer is 50 feet in some areas and then wider than 50 feet in other areas, depending on, what the landowner wanted. And so when we implemented the second phase of the planting in 2025, before that, we noticed that the trees from 2024 had experienced some severe deer browse and die off. And so we were able to replant the site, luckily, because of the way we had planned it. But then we included tree tubes and tree stakes to sort of help reduce that mortality rate. And now we're noticing that the site is quite windy and the tree tubes, quite a few of them have fallen down from last year. And so we think this is a really valuable site. We have a really keyed in landowner who really values the project. She is constantly updating us about the project conditions. And we just want to get back out there and fix up the site and maintain it so that it can be successful.
Dean?
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Dean, with going from one funding source like a Trees for Streams project, which the districts have lots of, what is the phosphorus benefit of some of these adoption projects? Does that get considered, or are we just strictly it's O&M dollars?
Well, we're adopting projects in order to have the phosphorus reduction.
Okay.
That's really
that's the key right there.
Yeah. So
and these are because this has really given me ideas to follow up on some of the projects I've done in the Memphremagog and some in the Upper Missisquoi.
Yeah. So when we are looking at a project for adoption, and this is all new for everybody, and Mel doesn't need to apologize for not understanding the process, because I don't know who does fully understand the process for adoption. Oh, hey, there's a dog. So the consideration does include very much what are the costs related to the phosphorus benefits that it provides. This is a project where it's not like others where you're looking at a single upfront cost and then a hypothetical O&M cost down the road. You're looking at those hypothetical costs down the road. And so this is a table that, and then there's also when you adopt, you have to, you have the remaining design life for the project. So that's kind of giving you a sense of the commitment. And if I had this right, 20 minus the 2 for a non-regulatory riparian buffer planting, it's just really more putting into context what is the expense going to be over, I'll call it the life of the project. And so that's what I did here. You're guessing at what those costs will be. So this is just information, but what you do with that information, we're all trying to figure out what's meaningful. Some of this, or I'm not sure if this table was, or some of this thinking may have been included in the memo. The only other thing I need to say about a project adoption is that I have a bias that carries over from work that I've done in more stormwater project work, where a stormwater project may have been done as part of a development and there's a permit on it, and the people that own that stormwater pond, let's say, wish to have that project adopted by a public entity like a town. And a principle that I have seen used very much in those situations is people are happy to adopt the stormwater pond as long as the stormwater pond is doing what it's supposed to do. So in other words, would it pass verification? Does it need significant upgrading before we would say that it's meeting current standards? And that's the thing that I'm struggling with a little bit with this project, because of questions that I have that we can probably resolve, but it's going to require an upfront investment. It's not just getting the project on our books and then doing ordinary maintenance. It sounds like something more than ordinary maintenance might be needed to bring things up. Not sure. I had flagged this as a possible issue. And one thing that I had sent to Mel within a couple of days was information about a grant program that I've just learned about that WOV can offer to help pay for, I'll say, some rehabilitation of certain planning projects. The information, Mel, you gave me back was, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that this site wouldn't be eligible. And I guess I would like to have that nailed down, that no, that's not an option. But just something different about this type of project is that it does need rehabilitation. If the deer browsed it before, are we going to be dealing with deer browse battles for a period of time? It's just a situation I really would like to see the Basin Council cut its teeth on adopting a project. I just wish that it was a brighter, clearer signal that this is a low cost, high benefit project. It's kind of a low cost and more than a little cost. High benefit or low benefit or low-ish benefit with maybe moderate costs. Anyway, I'll stop talking there because I'm not making much sense.
Yeah, Dean, and I'll address that. Thank you for bringing up those questions because I think it's important. And I'll be candid and say that last year was our first time ever using tree tubes, ever installing tree tubes. And there was definitely some user error on our part. And so I think that's part of the reason why that the tree tubes were not secure. And so what we want to do is get back out there. We installed a lot of tree tubes this year. We have more experience, and we know that using a sledgehammer for the stakes is very helpful in securing them. So with this better idea of what makes tree tubes more successful, I think that the site will end up being more successful. As far as deer browse goes, that's why we invested in the tree tubes in the first place. So hopefully that would once this upfront maintenance cost is out of the way, the site will end up being more successful and need less maintenance costs in the future. And Lauren, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Dean, I was just curious, the table you had up with the high number of like $159,000 for maintenance, was that, where did that number come from?
That was a calculation that was based on the 18 years times, and I think there were two sets of numbers. So it's nothing that you provided, but it's something that I based on the information that I got, and I can go look for the original spreadsheet that I pulled that from.
Yeah, I
It
guess I
may
just
t- it
wanted
may
to,
t- may take me a minute.
I'm assuming that that was like the 18 years times the $3,500 or whatever. But I guess like from our experience with tree plantings, kind of like the first 3 years is when you really need to invest some time and energy. But then after that, it's not nearly that amount. So
Yeah,
I would be wary of that.
the low was essentially it's going to only be required once, and then it's smooth sailing. The high is that what we thought would only be a one-time thing is a once every 3 or 4 years thing. I forget whether or not it was 3 or 4, but it
But that
was,
low was still like $100,000.
well, over 18
That,
years. Yeah,
yeah,
let me,
that doesn't seem like then we shouldn't be planting trees, I guess, if we actually think it's going to cost that much to maintain these projects.
Yeah, that was exactly my what I wanted to like ask about. It just seemed really out of proportion and made me just question like the point of these is not to make sure these individual trees like are perfect for 18 years. It's like to get the site established and then other things will grow and farming has stopped and things are being maintained like as a natural area. So it's yeah, it's less about that than like how you'd have to maintain like a stream crossing or a dam removal or something like that. Like the actual trees themselves are not the thing that you're like needing to be finicky about for 18 years. And I also wondered about just like why 18 years? Yeah.
Oh, so I can explain that.
Yes.
We implemented it in 2024 and the design life is 20 years. So I think that's where Dean came up with that number.
it's that's the most that we could. That's what the commitment is. It's for the balance of the life based on the SOP. So it's not a random number.
Okay. But what is, and I apologize if I missed something, but like the $3,400 and like the amount and it's like what does it mean to adopt and like how much, do we know how much money it's going to be? Or are we just saying like we're going to put aside such and such amount over time? Or is it more just like this is what we think it might be, but it might be
We
something else?
Yeah, we calculated based on our experience of, how much staff time it takes to go out and weed whack, and then also
Yeah.
how much staff time it takes and the average cost of like a replanting. So we budgeted for 3 years of like 1 or 2 maintenance visits a year, and then in the second year we budgeted for replanting, and that's on a per stem or like per acre basis. So we have an estimate and a reasoning for the cost, but yeah.
So we would be voting on like a specific amount.
Correct.
No, you're not voting on a specific amount. You're voting on whether. Sorry if that seemed abrupt. The recommendation the recommendation of the Basin Council is whether or not the project should be adopted. The QUISP.
Oh,
So the QUISP is so let me set the stage by saying when you approve an implementation project, you're approving the project and you're also approving the future stream of dollars that will be necessary to pay reasonable O&M here. And so nobody knows that number, but that's what you're doing. And in the case of the adoption, you're authorizing the adoption. We can never know. That's an estimate. It's not even something like we can have an engineer or a designer do. And as far as managing the cost, this is one of the challenging things for the QUISP to be figuring out is um, like, do we set aside money? We're not really setting aside, but we have to understand that there will be future O&M obligations, and that future O&M obligation is going to build over time. And so that's, I think, is Chris Frotler still here? Yeah, I think Chris has said, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that there will be a time conceivably when new projects don't need to be done. The bulk of any formula grants are directed at doing the O&M for the projects that have been created. But anyway, back to this question, you're not authorizing you're not authorizing the QUISP to only spend or spend at least a certain amount. You're authorizing the QUISP to adopt and spend the reasonable O&M cost for it. Hopefully that helps.
And just to clarify, what I was referring to is we do have a 3-year like budget for what would be the contract term that we applied with, which I don't know if that has been shared, Dean.
I thought everything that you had given was part of the packet. So if it wasn't part of the packet, it was an oversight.
Yeah,
it's
in the packet.
Yeah, I guess I'm just struggling a little bit with the sort of open-endedness and then like, just what you're sharing, Mel, like the completely normal and understandable, like we didn't know how to use tree tubes and now we do, but there's always like kind of I mean there's space for us all to like learn these like the most efficient and effective ways to do all of these projects, obviously. But it also feels like there should it especially with something like a buffer planting, I would feel more comfortable with just like this is what like the amount is, this is what we've got for O&M. Let's just try to make it work. Like whatever it is. If you estimate that it's going to be a couple days of string trimming, like that's what you've got and you just do it. And not have an open-ended thing like to set up the potential for anybody, it's not necessarily just the district or whoever, but like Dean, you're saying that this is really like the QUISP's commitment to maintaining the project. So like if for whatever reason the district wasn't able to do it, the QUISP would hire like somebody maybe, and I could just imagine a situation where it's like, well, we have to commit to O&M and now someone's telling us it's going to be $10,000 this year to do string trimming 8 years after the planting or something. Like it's just like it feels like there's some lack of like guardrails in the process that like put it out of proportion to what is needed and what's effective. And I'm glad this is like we're talking about this around a buffer planting because they're just as a repeatable project that we see across all of our watersheds. So it feels helpful to just like put this through its paces with that type of project.
Go ahead, Chris.
Could I jump in? I appreciate this being new. It is new for you as a BWIC or all of us to be thinking about adoption. I would just take us a little bit higher, 10,000-foot view of the value of adoption in general and say, we want to keep projects that have already been implemented going. And generally it's cheaper to maintain a project than create it from scratch. And that's the value of adoption, right? If it's still functioning or it could still be functioning with minimal inputs, we want that previous investment to bear fruit. Of course, we need to continue to get new projects, so that's why we have a balance between adoption and implementing new projects. But when you're thinking about adoption, I would recommend, and you take whatever approach you want, but this is the way I think about it. I'll just focus on myself. Would I, if I were a BWIC member, I'd be like, would I be willing to vote on this project if it was starting from scratch and it wasn't implemented? Like, would I be voting to implement it as a buffer planting? And maybe I wouldn't, maybe I would, but every time, to Dean's point, every time you're voting on a project, it is open-ended. So you might not be thinking about that, but you are committing to doing the O&M on every project because that's the system that we built, because we want these projects to not just be built and be ignored. we want them to be operating for their design life. I don't know if that makes you feel better about this system or worse, because you are concerned about the open-endedness of this, but it is like, I would just say it's a normal part of the funding. If that's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean thanks, Chris. That is helpful. And I guess it's interesting. I'm just reflecting out loud a little bit here. Like tree plantings are, relatively lower cost to implement. But sometimes the maintenance is like, if it's a bad place or that's not successful, you can end up spending more than the original project to maintain it, and it might not be worth it. And I think that's just maybe a bigger philosophical question that we all should ask ourselves around tree plantings as a restoration practice. I always like to think like we're in Vermont. Vermont wants to be forested. Like eventually that's going to just happen if we don't cut things down, but like we plant trees. So I think like it's just interesting because if you're like spending, the previous project that we just voted on where it's like you're doing earth moving and excavating and creating floodplains, like maintaining that or removing a dam or a stream crossing or something, like hopefully like the maintenance is not going to be anywhere near what the cost of implementation is. But like with tree planting, it just might be really different. So anyway, that's just like a little in the moment reflection, but I hear you. Like if we want to like make sure this particular tree planting is successful, then maybe that's the approach we need to take.
I would, yeah, I hear you, and I would add to the conversation. The QUISP is still incentivized to keep costs down and maintain progress toward their target. So if there is something catastrophic or extraordinarily expensive that makes the QUISP uncomfortable with the dynamic, I'm sure they'll come back to you and say, well, I think we should abandon the project. And that's something that could happen. But it's not, even though it is open-ended, and there may be some value to rehabilitate a project that's catastrophically failed. You will have a chance, most likely, to weigh in on that as a BWIC. You can have that as an ongoing conversation. Knowing Dean, he definitely wants to keep costs down. I think that's a good way to operate, like as a BWIC and a request working together, like just maintain your communication, keep the lines open about costs as they roll along. And that way you don't have to worry about 20 years down the road about what the costs are going to be. You can just take it as it comes. And if things do become too expensive, you can cross that bridge when you get there. And I think Dean can just shake his head. That's his approach, but I know that's his approach. If that's helpful.
Go ahead, Lauren.
It's just a super quick logistical question. I assume if we do project adoption, we would need a site access license. Is that correct?
It's been drafted but not signed by the landowner.
But that would be a requirement, Dean.
Yes.
You're on mute, Dean.
Sorry. Yeah, we can't adopt it without the site access agreement.
And that was part of the application process, which is why I answered that question.
I have a couple of just sort of math questions, I think. Dean, I assume that you got the annual estimated maintenance cost from that proposal of Mel's $26,000 divided by 3 that they proposed. So that gave us 87.
Yeah, so this is, if people can see, this is the source of those 109 versus 157. So 2.58, 18 years. So estimated annual maintenance costs when you have a 3-year proposal of 26,000 divided by 3, that's annual. What's the cost per kilogram? So if you look at doing it once and not having to do it again, then this is the total. You get the annual cost times 3 plus the annual cost minus the upfront, and that's what gives you the total. I think.
So I think those
Because
feel
it's
really
after,
high
because it's after,
because,
it's 15 rather than 18 because it's after the first round.
right. I think that feels really high from an implementer perspective because um, there won't need to be as much string trimming once the trees are big enough to be outside of the tree tubes, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, from the QUISP function, will that $157,000 be tied up for the next 18 years in case it is needed?
Short answer is no. It's like I was trying to use the words that I thought accurately described it. It's a future estimated obligation. We're not putting money in an account that it's going to earn interest that's set aside. It's kind of, well, in some ways it's kind of simple. In some ways it's kind of complicated. But it's not me. We have not had any discussions, and I don't think any other QUISP has had these discussions where you estimate what the O&M costs are for the next 3 years, and you reduce what you are willing to spend on new projects by that amount. That's not how we're working. Again, at the risk of mischaracterizing something that Chris has said, we're all learning, and if the O&M costs end up being, if there needs to be a change to the formula that provides more money for O&M in some other way, then there will need to be changes to the formula. But we're not going to reduce the funds because of our estimates of O&M. That's not on the table.
Yeah, I think just also from an implementer perspective, Lauren and Mel are envisioning allocating staff time for the next 3 years. I don't think they're envisioning allocating staff time for the next 18 years because that would mean we would run out of ability to maintain projects just with the staff we have. So I'm muddling through this. I guess my request is, it looks to me in the proposal that FCNRCD is saying, can we have $26,000 and a task award for that amount to maintain this for the next 3 years? And I'm wondering if what the QUISP is wanting from the BWIC is approval of $26,000 plus 15 more years at the slightly lower rate.
No, sorry. The QUISP is looking for the BWIC to take an action on the adoption of this project with the information that you have available for it. It's the QUISP role to make a decision on who's going to perform those tasks. And we have a new policy in place that allows us to give that first bite at the apple to the project implementer. When we've got a project and the project implementer says, yes, we want to do the O&M on it, we have a simplified process where they basically do a cost proposal like what we have here, and then we would sign an agreement with them for 3 years. It's not perpetual. We are doing these in 3-year blocks because after 3 years, after 2 years, they could decide, no, we can't do it. And maybe there will be a future in 3 to 5 to 6 to 9 years where there's some other approach. Maybe there's one entity that grows out of the existing ones we're going to be the O&M specialists or something like that. But any obligation with the district, if they want to accept the task award or task order, is going to be for the 3-year period, and then it will be renewed or reviewed and renewed. Hopefully that helps.
I still have questions on this. It just feels off to me, the budget and sort of what's being like, if we have kind of standards around the number of years after a planting that we're going to string trim and what certain maintenance things that happen over certain periods. And I know that those are fairly standard across all of the major funders of buffer plantings. So it feels like this should be kind of based on that, like a budget or a proposal. And it sounds like that is what you did, Mel, but in terms of the piece that we're now looking at, it it just feels weird to be like, well, it could potentially be like string trimming for the next 18 years. And even though like no one here right now says that they want to do that, if that's what is approved, then like maybe there's a place where someone is just going out and like unnecessarily string trimming a tree 15 years from now. Like there's just something that just feels like it's not lining up to me. And I like Lindsay, I'm also muddling through this. But there, yeah, like I'd love to see it like just more reflective of like what's actually the standards that we're following and the budget based on that and your predictions of that, which is like what the district has provided, but it doesn't feel like it's what we're being asked to do right now.
Go ahead, Dean.
So the thing that we don't have is the curve. How much are the costs going to drop off? So what if we assume that, and I'm using the cell for design life just because it's going to make the numbers work. If we assume that after 5 years, it it basically is cost free, that very little expense, well then we're talking about that initial amount. It drops from the earlier high to 44,000 and the low 37,000. So, that maybe those numbers psychologically just seem like, oh yeah, that starts to make more sense. I just arbitrarily chose five, but maybe five is maybe it's a good guess. It's a thing that we just don't have in my, yeah, to my knowledge. We don't have a curve that says that if you have 100 buffer plantings, the shape of the curve is like this, and that by year 5, the majority of them are spending very, very little money. But maybe if we assume that after 5 years, it's going to cost us very little, these numbers make more sense.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I think this is probably just to like Chris's point earlier. On a regular project that we're funding implementation for, it's kind of at that stage where this approval process happens anyway. There's not an adoption later. It's like, no, at this point, we're saying we're committed to this project, whatever it takes, almost. Then we just haven't necessarily said it explicitly like this before. Is that right?
If you're asking me, yeah, that's kind of what it is.
And so I guess like Alaire, I totally hear you. And I think it's like a bigger structural
For sure. Yeah.
question. I did I guess I would be curious too if there's what's in policy. This is my own ignorance. What's in policy around like abandoning a project? Like when is that determination made and who makes that? Because I think like that's a good, we might have to on some tree plantings abandon them.
That's just to quickly jump in. That's a conversation that would probably take another 20 minutes, but it is a conversation that has been touched on in Lamoille because that happened there with one of the first projects that was approved. Um, there are some thresholds, and I'm not remembering them off the top of my head, for things that the QUISP can decide, things that require the book to decide. The QUISP can make decisions to make additional investments if some things go bad. There are this essentially, and I'm going to misname them, but kind of like insurance policies, like a catastrophic loss part of the rule that we would have to go to the Clean Water Board, and that money, if it comes to us, we could decide to redo a project, or we could decide, no, let's do it someplace else instead. But this could be a topic for the next meeting or a future meeting to dive deep into the question, like, okay, now that we're getting our heads around it, what will it look like under 2 or 3 scenarios where things go bad?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious in having that conversation just because sometimes like you plant a tree and it doesn't work. So I hear you.
Other questions or comments on this topic? Would anyone like to motion to move this proposal to the next step?
Sorry, I just quickly wanted to understand why the agreement would auto renew after 20 years. That seems like maybe that's not for a tree planting. Like, wouldn't you be stepping away from it at that time?
So the current policy is, and again, if I'm not, oh, Chris had to leave. Okay, maybe he's still, yeah, he is still here. The current premise is that in order to claim the credit, the QUISP has to have access to it so that verification can occur. Now, looking 20 years down the road, it's going to be different. The thing about site access agreements is that people can get out of them. They can extricate themselves from them. The default language is that they would auto renew, but people can get out of them. So that's the basic point. These are not permanent commitments because people can extricate themselves from them. But some of this is just form. It's like like if we were talking about a project that had a life of 5 years, the idea of renewing every 5 years is maybe not so challenging as one that it's 18 or 20. And that is something that could be changed, I think. But I think the most important part is that it's not a pair of handcuffs. Someone can extricate themselves from a site access license.
Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I was just gonna go off of that and say that the 20-year renewal is for the agreement between the QUISP and the landowner, and the money going to FCNRCD, or that would go to FCNRCD to do the maintenance work, is only for that 3-year contract would be. And so that doesn't automatically renew. So I just wanted to clarify that, right?
Thank you.
So Dean, what you're looking for today is a motion for the QUISP, for the BWIC motion that the QUISP adopt this project. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the perceived cost is $26,000 for this 3-year adoption, or does the cost not matter?
Well, I think that if I was sitting as a BWIC member, that would be a number that is, foremost in my head. But I would also recognize, because I'm into this too deep, that it is all of this stuff is reimbursable. So hey, if it costs less, it costs less. So if we don't have any surprises, it won't cost more than 26,000 over 3 years. And maybe if we're lucky, knock on wood, the deer go away and the plants thrive, and we're looking at, a $500 a year cost or whatever after that. But so 3 years, I think, is a reasonable period of time. If that's what it takes to wrap your head around it, use that information. But you're not being asked today to do anything other than, do you recommend the adoption of this project?
Is anyone on screen comfortable making a motion regarding that? Would anyone like more information? Is there a way we can get to comfort?
Well, if I could ask another question, I guess one of the things that's going through my mind is it sounds like this would be that would open a gate to many more. And so how would the QUISP plan for that? Is that an accurate assumption?
There's a cap on adoption. You can only adopt 15% of your target.
Oh,
So
okay.
So
we're
it's
not
not open-ended.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
then
helpful to
I'll
know,
make the
Chris.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Heidi to approve the QUISP adopting this project. Is that correct, Heidi?
Yes.
Is there a second? We were all mucking around in the woods. Julie's seconding. Ken, do you have a question or?
Yeah, I'm not seconding. I'd feel a lot more comfortable reevaluating on an annual basis than trying to project out 3 years. Because I've seen some of these where you come back and you got to replant the whole thing in 3 years. And I mean, are you gonna? I don't know how to revisit this or how to look into the future. I don't.
What were the credits on this? What's the phosphorus estimate, team?
2.6 essentially, 2.58.
And what's your cost efficiency threshold?
Well, the cost efficiency threshold is for new projects.
Yes.
So but it's the cost threshold is greater than what this would cost. So this comes in within threshold, if that's what you're trying to get.
Yeah. So if this were a new project being implemented, this would be a cost-efficient project, which is my point.
Right, because
So
the funding to do.
I hear the nervousness, but I don't really care to do this. But if I was on the BWIC, I'd be voting to approve this. Like I will push back on some of the skepticism. Like I don't understand it, and I'd be willing to try and answer any questions to help reassure you about this project.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's more just about like the concept in general. And for me, it's about like, different kinds of projects and what it means and what success looks like over time and all of that. I mean, I think part of what was this planted with QUISP funding or was it from another, it was like a pure projet thing. Yeah. So like that's part of it too, right? That's why it's efficient because it wasn't like the original funding, there wasn't any phosphorus tied to that. So it comes to that, which is great. Like that feels like a easy way to get some phosphorus credits. I think I'm understanding that correctly. Because we've had some projects like that too, where like they originally were funded with a different source and then adopting it allows the QUISP to take some credit.
Yeah, and the idea is like if you don't invest in O&M, the project will fail and it won't have any water quality benefit. So, I mean, that's ultimately why we're here and spending money is, you're trying to prevent water pollution. And this is, again, on the cost effectiveness metric, it seems like a good cost effective project. If you have concerns, I mean, I don't want to dismiss them. Like, I get that. But just on the cost principle, which people seem to be wrestling with, it seems very clearly cost effective.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of like pieces that that's true based on like the calculations, but there's a bunch of pieces here where like the numbers don't actually reflect what is actually needed to happen and that's just like part of the system that we're trying to plug into here is like I think we just need like more. I mean, I'll support the project. Like I'll second if we need a second still. Or no, Julie did, but yeah, like it just feels like we're sort of like voting on something that like it kind of feels like we don't even need to vote on it because we've already adopted, or I guess we haven't adopted this one, but other ones like we don't need to vote on them because we've kind of already adopted them. And then the proposals are like the budgets like get reflected out in ways that aren't actually real in terms of like what's needed for the project. So it just feels like we need to like there's just more work to be done to like look at like what these projects actually really are and what's really needed and make sure that we're voting on something that like really makes sense. Like I want to vote for something that like really makes sense to me, and I'm sure everybody else does too. Like
Yeah.
this
Thanks,
budget that's up here, it's like, yes, that makes sense. I'll vote on that. But then when it's like projecting out over 20 years and like maybe it's going to be string trimming in 2042 or something like that, like I don't want to vote for that. So I'm just kind of like I want to be really clear like what we're actually doing. And I agree, Kent, like it would be cool, especially with buffers, to like revisit them because sometimes I don't know, like it does feel like there's a space for just like maybe this is just a failed spot if it's super windy and really dry and there's not process-based restoration and the trees aren't able to get down into the water, into the water and the roots are drying out. Like who knows? Like there's a million reasons why a planting could fail. And that's just like what we're all like learning and doing together.
Yeah, thanks for articulating that, Alaire. I think it also is a little like potentially, like Heidi said, potentially opening the floodgates of like, oh, okay, sure. And then what? Then
Yeah.
we're sure what we've committed ourselves to.
And I put this in the chat, but just to emphasize, every single project that you vote, you are voting to commit to do O&M. This is a conversation not just for adoption, but for every single project you support.
Yeah.
Because you are committing to do O&M for its design life. And so it is an open-ended commitment. And the state recognizes that dynamic. And early in the system, the O&M costs are not clear to you. They're not actually totally clear to us, but we want to keep the system moving forward and we don't want those costs to be a barrier to forward progress. So if and when in the next 3 to 5 years these O&M costs start to accumulate, we'll have more data and we will adjust targets and we'll tweak the policy so that it doesn't become a barrier to future progress. We will incorporate this into the cost rate methodology so that it's a rational system. TBD how it looks, but yeah, for what it's worth.
I just want to note that A, we have a motion on the floor. B, I just want to say thanks to FCNRCD for dipping their toes in the water and getting us having this discussion. And thanks to everybody for the thoughtful points that we've been hearing and discussing. It's been very interesting and elucidating, but I do want to note that we have a motion on the floor. And so if there are more discussions about that motion, I think that's certainly appropriate. But I want to keep us moving forward. So any other questions or comments related to the project or the motion to suggest that the QUISP adopt this project? Okay, let's take a vote. We have a motion that the QUISP adopt this project from Heidi, seconded by Alaire. All in favor? We've got Lindsay, Julie, Kent, Alaire, Beth, Heidi. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Got an abstention from Dan, an abstention from Lauren. Seconded by Julie. Sorry. Thank you, Alaire. And apologies, Julie. So we had, I didn't actually count, but we had 2 abstentions and we are missing 1 voting member and the rest of the voting members approved. Kent. Oh, you're on mute, Kent.
I have a question about how these sessions are being recorded. Are all of Chris's comments, are they going to be included in our minutes? I mean, that was a very important clarification he made before I voted. And that's why I voted the way I did, because of his clarification. I just want to make sure that's in our minutes so we can go back to that for future discussions.
Yeah, I'm doing the minutes. I can include that. Are you talking about Chris's comment that every project is 20 years? Or which comment?
I'm referring to the fact that they are reviewing the process and that they will come back to it. And as
Oh, okay.
we accumulate enough projects and enough circumstances, that if the DEC needs or CWIF, if they need to uh, re-examine how this is set up, that it'll be done so.
Yeah, I'll include that in the minutes. I think I already have it.
Okay.
So Ken, just in addition to the minutes, we always have the recordings. And when we have the recordings, we upload them to Google, which also includes transcripts. And now with AI, we have meeting summaries. And so there's redundancy in the system. We have captured that Chris said what he said, but Orna will make sure that the minutes call it out.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that we're happy to move through this new process, and I'm happy to chat with any folks who are interested in what it was like to apply and moving forward.
Thank you. And I do just want to put a pin in that and say that we did have enough votes to approve that motion. I didn't actually state that clearly. So thanks everybody again for that. Next up, we just have, I think, final check-in. Oh, again, lost my place. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I knew there was one other discussion topic. Term staggering.
This is on the agenda at the request of Lauren, who had suggested it, and there was material in the packet. There are pros and cons for doing it, but the it that I'm referring to is the idea that instead of having all of the seats get renewed every 2 years, which is something that is spelled out in rule, so it has to happen every 2 years. But under a staggered system, we would split the membership of the WIC into two groups, and some of you would happen 1 year and some of you would happen the next year. And I think the motivation for doing that is that it's kind of an insurance policy against a situation where you lose that a bunch of people decide not to renew. So you're never going to be exposed to non-renewal more than 5 members out of 9 because we can't split. This is really just a discussion item. I don't think that it's necessarily going to result in a decision, but this is a bit of background information. Doesn't have any effect on the terms of the vice chair and chair. Yeah, so it does mean more organization rather than an email going out to everybody once every 2 years. It's going to be split, and so some of them will happen it'll happen annually and go to different people. So there is some administrative overhead, and I don't know if there's anything, Lauren, that you wanted to touch on.
I just thought it made sense to stagger terms. That's all I got.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Kent.
I'll raise my hand. And I know that other organizations that I've been in, I've experienced a clean sweep, and it makes for kind of a mad dash to run out and get a whole new cast of characters to serve. And then also there's quite a drop off in knowledge as you're recovering from a clean sweep. I don't know if it's going to apply to what we're doing. This seems to be a really stable group. Everybody here looks so familiar to me. It's been such a great thing working with you folks over the years. But you know, like in my parent organization, the Friends, we've just added 6 new members this year, you know, and so the time comes. You know, I'm just trying to think you know, of an easy way for the organization to transition. I also understand it's an extra burden on the quiz provider to keep track of everybody and to do that. I think it's something that can be automated though, and could be accomplished.
Would people be okay if this is a discussion topic that gets kicked around with the chair and vice chair, and we see how it can be refined or tweaked or timelined or something like that, rather than just leaving it as they talked about it, and unless someone wants to make a motion. I don't want to leave that off the table.
Speaking as chair, I'm fine with it being something that we discuss on a smaller scale. It looks like Kent's in agreement. Anyone want to make sure that we do this as a full group? Okay, let's chat. Dean, Kent, we'll figure out something. Next up is just updates and future meeting topics. Go ahead, Dean. You are on.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry. Sorry. People can hopefully see on the screen just a reminder that we are putting the call out to everybody. If you have a task award for an active project, that if you need to talk to any contractors, have them submit invoices through June 30, and please get those to us as soon as possible after June 30 if you aren't able to do it before. I just also wanted to mention, this is maybe in the vein of a future agenda topic, something that I'm seeing more, this idea of DEC has phases, but a basin council might want to approve multiple phases of the project. I just wanted to throw that out there and have it on the record so that people are hearing it. And if you have any thoughts on it, let me know. I was in a BWIC meeting for Basin 5 where there were projects that were not acted upon, but explicitly included 2 phases. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I wanted to just say, if you haven't heard the news, and probably many of you have heard the news about this video that is now on Vermont Public, that features the work of Lindsay and her crew at MRBA. I watched it last night. It's great. I encourage everybody to see it if you haven't seen it. Very cool. Hats off to you guys.
You get to see Dan too.
And Dan, man, I was talking at the computer screen and telling my partner, that guy, he does everything. Next thing I had mentioned, and these things are going in the chat, there's another forest road and trail training that is being coordinated by the Lamoille Conservation District. So June 29th, if you want to sign up for that, pursue it. There's an information session that is happening regarding the 3-acre permit. That's happening next week. It's going to be in Swanton Village at the village offices, and we're encouraging pre-registration. So if you want to find out more, that's the link. And we're also having a fair bit of discussion internally about site access easements and how do they mesh with properties that will have or do have conservation easements. That was it for things. If there's any if there was any other kind of announcement quick that people wanted to throw out, the topics for the future. Okay, so I see training sponsored by Tactical Basin. Okay, training. Okay. Topics for the next meeting. Next meeting is the annual meeting. There will be the election of officers. It's going to be, as it's been in the last few years, at the Emergency Services Building. In addition to the election of officers, I don't know, project updates, maybe a site tour. We did that last time. The Lamoille Basin did it last year, and they're going to do it again. If people would like to do that, let us know. Let the chair know.
The dam's still going on. We could go back.
Well, if people would like to go back, it's close. So,
or some Montgomery projects,
or some wonderful Montgomery projects too.
Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate everyone making time for this special meeting and the QUISP's flexibility with the chaos that we all had whenever that was. All the weeks are blending together, but Any final comments or questions from folks? Great.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Look forward to seeing people in August. And we've got a motion to adjourn. Second. Lauren motioned, Delaire seconded. All in favor? Say yay. Yay, we're all in favor. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye, guys.